Welcome to our onboard hospitality video slot designed to help motivate airlines and suppliers to keep going through these toughest of times and make some positive plans for the future. We've set up Zoom calls with key movers and shakers in our sector, asking them one big question on the future of in-flight service relevant to their area of expertise. And with me today is Lance Hayward, who heads up the Hayward Partnership of worldwide in-flight consultants. Welcome and thanks for joining us, Lance. You're based in the UK like me, so just tell our viewers a little bit about what lockdown life is like for you and how your team has managed to keep going during these times.
Okay, well, personally, it started off fairly badly because both my wife and I unfortunately caught the virus, and so we know firsthand what that feels like.
A survivor.
It's exactly. I'm now free of COVID, so I think I'm one of the few people that can wander about quite freely without worry. But it's not to be recommended. I think the isolation, the fact that you lost your taste buds, the fact that you can hardly breathe, and with no treatment is something that a lot of people are thinking. Is this something that happens to other people? Well, it doesn't. And I can say it's real and it's not to be recommended.
Yeah. Well, great that you've managed to survive it and the consultancies managed to function as well.
Yeah, as far as the business is concerned, we're all independent. So we don't have offices to go to. And so we don't have to worry about the furloughing and all the other stuff that so many people are going through at the moment, or the redundancies. We're based right around the world, so we have the benefit of, Zoom is getting a hammering at the moment, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But we have the benefit of having people from all over the world, and we are getting updates as to what's happening, as far afield from Houston in Texas to Australia to the Middle East and so on. And it's fascinating to watch how things are evolving in each of those countries.
I'm glad you're well. That's the most important thing, and that your team is managing to keep busy. And I know between you recently published a paper on shaping the new normal. So I'm keen to chat with you today, not least because of the global nature of your consultancy with the experts all around the world. You clearly get insights on the challenges facing our sector. So I think our one big question for you is, how can we speed up the recovery? Tell us a little bit about your team's conclusions.
Okay, as you mentioned, we put together a paper called Shaping the New Normal. Before this all hit, we had a nice pipeline of great customer experience sort of projects all lined up with a number of airlines around the world. All of that, of course, comes grinding to a halt because everyone's focused now on making sure their cost base and the capacity is appropriate going forward. So we sort of diverted our attentions to this. What does this new normal look like? And it represents a proactive response to the impact of COVID-19. It's a collaborative effort by all the members of the THP team. All of them, as you know, have had sort of senior positions at the sharp end for many years, all customer-facing aviation business people, working in airlines, working in airports, for suppliers and so on. And it's really in response to what we observed is happening so far. I mean, governments are taking a silo approach based on their own risk assessments. There have been variable interpretations of safety executive guidelines by airlines and airports and suppliers. There's a huge variety of PPE standards, seat configurations, processes that we've heard from around the world. And all of this is kind of added to the confusion of the prospective passenger who are already faced with multiple concerns. Is it safe? Am I insured? Can I afford it? Is my job secure? And so on and so on. And add to that with this plethora of different responses from the aviation industry. And you have to think that the poor passenger is thinking, should I bother? Should I go back out there? So we're sort of saying, the industry needs to get together. We need to have a proactive response to crisis. And we need to communicate that effectively to the passengers so that they're clear that we're going to keep them safe, that the people that they're dealing with are safe, and that they can go back to enjoying travel.
Yes, I think, from my observations, I think we've seen some people are trying to be a bit proactive, but it does feel like a lot of people are just thinking, let's do nothing and wait it out and see where where it ends up, just go into survival mode and wait and see approach. You don't think that's a good solution?
Do nothing is always a good question. Can we not spend any money and get away with it? I think it's usually a good option to explore, but in this case, I'd have to say it's absolutely not. We did nothing when Ebola and SARS hit. Those were early warnings that we had, and we did not heed them. It's cost us dearly. The forecast of global GDP is upwards of 2.5 trillion. I can't really conceive of that number in my head. The cost of jobs, the cost of livelihood, the cost of mental health of people has been enormous. And everything that we have in place at the moment is still there. So the chances of something like COVID-19 or something else, something similar to that happening again is high. So we have to do something proactive to make sure it's safe to travel and enjoyable to travel right from the get-go. And it needs to be coordinated, because it's one of the things with this particular global crisis is that it affects every aspect of the supply chain. It's not just the airports or the airlines that need to do something. It's all the suppliers, and every element needs to do their bit. And the passengers themselves need to do their bit to make sure that biosecurity is in place and that they're not taking infections onto aircraft and infecting other people.
So in a nutshell, what do you think we should be doing, we should actively be doing right now? And what exactly do you mean by the stringent biosecurity measures?
Well, I start the view that mass transportation is not physically or commercially geared up for a 2 meter or even a 1 meter social distancing guideline. You need to get the people there. They need to be in the mood to spend. Otherwise, it's economically not worth it. Airports aren't designed for that. The tube is not designed for that. So we have to make sure that people entering into that environment are safe before getting into that environment. So I've been talking to a lot of medical experts recently. It's amazing the people that you come across when you start putting a paper like this together. But a 3-phase approach was recently shared with me that seemed to make a lot of sense. Phase 1 is about pre-travel screening a few days prior to travel. Do you pass the checkpoints that say that you're safe to travel at that point? Phase 2 is a pre-embarkation screening and the PPE protocols at airports that's a catch-all, that makes sure that once you're 99.9% sure that people are safe going into the environment, there is still the PPE there to make sure that any additional risk is stopped. And then finally, phase 3, arrival screening, to make sure that once you get into your new destination, that you're safe to then go about your business. Now, there's a lot of scientific medical detail that sits behind each of those proposed phases, which we won't obviously have time to cover in this 10-minute interview. But it's important to stress that it's not just the airports or the airlines that need to collaborate in this. Every touch point in the supply chain has been affected, and each of the sectors in the process needs to reevaluate their own process and supply chains and communicate them effectively.
And yes, coming to that communication thing, because I think that is the kind of one of the biggest hurdles that, as an industry, once we do get our act together and do kind of work out what it is we're working towards and trying to sort of introduce, building that confidence with the passenger again is going to be absolutely fundamental, isn't it? Why do you see that so important?
The first thing is to put in place robust biosecurity measures, and they need to be robust. I mean, there's a number of measures being talked out there, which, dare I say it, is a PR stunt, which, it doesn't really tick all the boxes from a medical perspective to ensure that you are free from COVID. So you need to have those in place, but then you need to effectively communicate them, and done in such a way that people realize their own part in the process, but done in a calm and measured way. What we can't do is to spook passengers into thinking they're going into a dangerous environment.
Yeah.
It needs to be feeling normal. The experience of travel needs to remain pleasurable. You need to feel that a mask is okay, and I can still shop with a mask, and I can still go and pick up something from the shop and buy it. We need to make sure that communication is effective. The reason why I say that is I've had experience in the past where the communication was wrong. When the abolition of duty-free took place, we spent a lot of time in the airports telling people what they couldn't do. What we didn't tell them is what they could do. And so what they did, because so fearful of breaking the rules, they didn't go anywhere near the shops. And so that communication needs to be so cleverly nuanced to say, yes, all this is in place, but you don't have to worry about it. You can enjoy this trip.
Yes, I do think we're kind of, up until the crisis, we were so focused on passenger experience, and then suddenly we just aren't talking about experience other than hygiene, and it feels like you're getting into an intensive care ward when you look at some of those cabin images. But you understand why they're doing it, but it's kind of not inspiring, is it?
No, if you make it difficult for people to travel, if you make it fearful for people to travel, they will find other options. And one thing that this has proven is that we can have conversations with people and have meetings with people around the world without having to go there. If you make it too difficult, will they still do it? I think not. I think you do need to make it pleasurable, but you need to make it part of the new normal.
So what are the next steps then? Give us a positive sort of process of where we go now to finish on.
Well, we're actively in discussions with a number of key players in the industry about some of our thoughts. We don't purport to have all the answers. We just have lots of questions, which I think people have not really thought through as yet. We can bring together a wide range of expertise to support it. We are desperate to help the industry get back onto its feet. All of us in the Hayward Partnership have had the benefit of working in the industry for many, many years. And, we love the industry and we love to help get it back on its feet.
That's great. And just so one last question then is, obviously with all that experience behind you, are you generally as a team optimistic for the future? Can we come through this?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that it will be different. The actual travel passenger experience will be different, but the sooner we can actually address it in a proactive way, the sooner we can make that journey again pleasurable for business, for leisure. People's love of travel is not going to stop. The mass transportation is there. People have seen what it's like. They love it. You can see that over the years, growing every year. And if you look at all the other crises, it took a little bit of time, but it not only came back, but it came back with a vengeance. This could last a little longer. I fully accept that, but it will come back. The question for us is how quickly.
Yeah.
And if we let it run its course, it'll take a long time, 2 years and more. If we do something proactive, we can bring that forward. And a lot of businesses out there can't afford to wait 2 years to see if they're going to survive or not. So let's do something now.
Great. That's a great upbeat idea to end on. So thank you very much for that, Lance. And we all look forward to collaborating with you and the rest of the industry and charting the return to success. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Julie. Thank you.